Track sounds.
All right, you are listening to the Never Less Than Ill podcast with myself, Justin Ivy, veteran hip hop journalist, and my man Lyndon Burton, the mastermind behind Bros Who Think. Lynn, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Good week this week, feeling good. Love the reception that we got from everybody about episode 1. And now for episode 2, it's everywhere. It was a slow churn out because of these streaming companies, but now it's everywhere. You can get it Apple Pod, Spotify, YouTube. By the time you guys hear this, Stitcher and Google Play will be active. So it's everywhere now. And I just want to thank Andreas again for coming on. The Kendrick clip people love, the Drake stuff people was loving, and just hearing more about Lil Brother. I know I got my from my father to some of my younger uncles were like, yo, this was great.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Yes, man, the reception's been so good. We really appreciate you, everybody listening to it and sharing it. And yeah, like you said, the Kendrick one, a little tidbit was great. This week, we're going to take our action to the West Coast and celebrate maybe one of the most unheralded but influential collectives that exist. Hieroglyphics. We're talking Dell. We're talking Souls of Mischief, Casual, Pep Love, Domino, DJ Torre, the whole crew. We're going to get into all of it. And to talk with us about the Jairo crew, we got David Ma, a great journalist, one of my favorite hip hop writers, and one of the hosts of the Dad Bod Rap Pod. All right, Never Less Than Ill podcast here. We're with the great David Ma. Glad to have him here talking about the Hieroglyphics. David, how you doing, man?
Yo, fellas, thank you for having me. It's never a bad time to kind of chop it up about the music we love. So, we were just talking off camera before this started that a lot of things going on today with the George Floyd, as well as, the Red Man meth and just a lot of things going on at the moment. But it's always good to just take a second out and kind of, exhale and nerd out about music. That's kind of what we love doing, right?
Absolutely. So to start off, I wanted to just get your thoughts on when you first heard Jairo. Was Dell, was Souls? What was your introduction to the group?
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, so we had a channel that used to be on free TV called CMC, which was the California Music Channel, and it was just sort of like a local. It had a bunch of local DJs, and they would play a bunch of music videos, and a lot of them are national videos. It's not like because we're from the Bay, we get more E40 videos. We'd still get Captain Save-A-Ho. But because Souls of Mischief were blowing up in '93, we saw 93 Chill all the time. So if I had to really think back, that was probably the first time they entered my consciousness, with Souls of Mischief being on CMC. But then eventually it was like, yo, I love this Dell album. And then eventually it was like, yo, these guys are from the same crew. Like, what's going on? So it was a lot of realization going on. But that's probably when they first, kick-started, into my universe. And I loved Dell stuff right away. I mean, I even loved his first album, so.
All right. So as you're getting this exposure, what was it like for you being from the Bay and seeing like a hometown team kind of, starting to blow up in the hip hop landscape?
It was great. I mean, I'm a 40-year-old dude. So, I mean, I'm very old. I grew up middle school, high school, even a little bit of college. Jairo soundtracked a lot of my stuff, and especially during the independent underground hip hop movement of the late 90s, early 2000s. They were very prominent. There's another Bay Area crew called the Living Legends, but Jairo are the Living Legends, And I think what was most striking to me about them was that, especially then, but probably a little bit now. I mean, I think of my rap heroes as like comic book characters, So, I mean, 1993, there was like Ghetto Boys, Wu-Tang, De La Tribe, and to this day, I still think of them as superheroes. But like Jairo and specifically Souls of Mischief, they were cool because like if you ran into them at a party, if you run into like Method Man at a party, I'm like intimidated. But if Jairo are at a party, I want to smoke a blunt with them, So they had this sort of relatable everyman quality that I think just always came through very well, you know, on their music. And again, I mean, they would rap about smoking weed and girls and, you know, some street stuff. I mean, Casual definitely had like a street edge, but Dell and Jairo, I'm sorry, Dell and Souls were kind of nerdy, you know? So it was very relatable, like on that tip for me.
What was that like, being that like you have E40 and Too Short as like the legends of the Bay, and then now that kind of get into that street stuff? What was it like having more so that backpacker culture kind of come in, the laid backness of having Souls, basically the Bay Area's version, and this is no disrespect, but this is just a comparison, the Bay Area's version of like a Tribe. Right.
You know, to sort of my earlier point, it was great because like it was relatable. In their videos, I think the You Never Knew video, I think they're just like rapping in Hawaii or something, and I think the other Souls of Mischief videos are just like walking around Berkeley and Oakland and rapping. So they were purposefully just very relatable hometown dudes. You might see them on BART. They rap about it. You know what I mean? Dell has a song about it. So I guess like for me, that was probably the most striking because it sort of just made things seem real, seem attainable. You know, I mean, and especially at that time, there was that whole Jairo versus Hobo Junction battle. And like, that's just steeped in Bay Area lore. And I mean, you really had to have been there and been around at the time to like feel it. It was just like a battle that was on a radio station, but it felt like gods were at war. It was crazy. And I don't know, did you guys see the recent documentary about it?
I did. It was the one that got put on YouTube, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like a 35-minute video or something.
Yeah, really good.
I need to check that out.
It's dope, man. It's dope. And you know, contemporaries of Jairo at the time were the Hobo Junction dudes, but like I didn't really relate to them. They were kicking it with, you know, on train tracks, and you know, I thought Saphir was by far their most talented member, as reflected in the documentary. But besides, you know, Boxcar Sessions, I wasn't really into them. So the only other sort of example of hip hop that wasn't a Too Short, that wasn't an E40, was these Jairo guys who were like the cool kids in class. You know, they're the guys you cut class with in college to smoke blunts, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great point too, that, you know, that relatability. I think we see that to this day, you know, with the success of Jairo Day and
right.
And obviously these guys were sort of pioneers of that direct to consumer independent style. You know, I kind of think of, you know, the Jairo Imperium site and guys, you know, Souls selling Focus and Dell selling Future Development. You know, like these guys, we're looking at it today is, you know, it's totally on the internet. Everybody's, you know, reaching out. They're like, these were some of the first guys that you could go buy an album from online. Right.
Huge. And I remember that in like 1998. And I've subsequently have covered these guys like extensively. Literally, I've talked to all of them, have done different legacy pieces and like reviews and in-person podcasts, like all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're local and some of them have become friends. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, there was just so much going on. And these guys, I think in 98 had their own site, was doing the independent game sort of before everyone else. You could go online and 100% stream their music, you know. And I think a lot of credit needs to be given to Domino, the producer of the crew. I mean, not only is he like super unheralded in terms of as a production maestro, but he's also their manager and sort of the visionary for the record label. And you know, as you can see, you know, it's about 25 years later, and these guys, after they got dropped from the majors, took their music, took control of their own careers, and they're still going very strong. I mean, Tajay is an entrepreneur, Tajay from Souls of Mischief, and it's just like, it's really amazing to see because it's like these guys have day jobs and they're the best rappers, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's such a great point too. You know, like you're saying, with I think the way they've just continued to stay relevant too is because I think back to like Dell, being one of the first guys to be using Bandcamp. Like Bandcamp's the way to go for indie artists now. Like, man, I remember him being like maybe the first year that it even existed, Dell was on there putting a project out. It's like these guys are always ahead of the game and just finding a way to stay with the times.
Right. I mean, and Dell, who's like, you know, legendary rapper. He's on my personal top 10, maybe even top 5, depending on the day, and who's had glorious solo runs of not only Jairo projects, but like, Deltron collaborations with Dan the Automator. So for somebody like of that magnitude to have, you can stream his music as early as like 1997 or something. I mean, that's nuts. And it just goes to show, how forward thinking they are, to Lyndon's earlier point. I mean, these guys were always ahead of the curve, and, it reflects in their music. They're smart dudes who rap about smart things and put together verses with, sometimes novelistic detail and very just interesting ways. I mean, Dell has such a good voice. Casual has such a good voice. They could get on the mic and say gibberish, and it might sound dope. But they are very intense when it comes to like wordplay and just the seriousness of their subject matter. And again, it's just like these are like not only like musically gifted dudes, but they're super smart.
Why do you think they don't get why don't you think they get enough credit as those pioneers for the streaming? Because in this age where it's podcasting and there's like write-ups all the time, why don't you think they're talked about more in the social like culture of hip hop in the streamings, on the Twitters, on the social medias, when people are having debates about who's the most influential? We always hear about Wayne being influential, Chief Keef, Kanye West. The list can go on. As someone who's young and is learning some of this stuff, and that's why I love having this show, getting the history and learning more about the actual culture of hip hop. Why don't you think they get their credit for that?
I think there's probably a two-pronged answer to that. One, if you talk to the guys, they're all about like, yo, like give us our props. Like we did that shit like before anyone else did. So if you talk to any of the Jiro guys and bring up the website, they'll be like, yo, dog, we were streaming stuff and we had our own Bandcamp before there was a Bandcamp, So I think there is a knowledge and respect there for what they did. But in general, with the internet, it's just a snowball effect, right? No one gives a fuck and no one gives credit to anybody. Everyone just takes it and does it, And I think that's part of it too. And the other sort of minor part, I think, is a little bit of a East Coast bias, because like these guys were the hugest, like for a quick minute, and then just disappeared off the national landscape. But that doesn't mean that they weren't making beautiful, amazing stuff anyways, and which they did, and which, we're heads. So to us, oh yeah, of course we know about, No Need for Alarm and Future Development, and even the Hyrule oldies bootlegs that they sold from their car, like dope shit. But I think on a national and even international scale, the Lil Waynes of the world get celebrated more. And so I think it's just a bias, and it is what it is. People celebrate what they like, and so if the stuff that you don't like doesn't get championed, then I guess it's on you and cats like us who are heads to, sort of put it on. Exactly. Put it on, let the people know.
In terms of them getting their just due, I always feel like Dell really got his with a mix of, oddly enough, Tony Hawk soundtracks and the Gorillas. It was like those were the two that like finally it was like, okay, he's getting this spread music out to a wider audience. What do you remember about those times and kind of seeing Dell find this new audience?
Okay, so for us, we were heads. I mean, I keep saying that, but I mean, what all that means is that we lived rap, we ate rap, we purchased it and tried to make it and do all that. And Dell was like such a purveyor of that. Like, I mean, No Need for Alarm is like one of the best rap albums ever. But I feel like most people, like my sister, who's a lawyer, has no idea who that is. You know what I mean? But she did find out who he was, and I feel like a lot of like college kids and the younger sort of younger generation did because of the Gorillas. So it was weird. Well, I'm a much older dude than you guys, but yeah. So like, it was cool to be like, yo, I'm at a club and they're playing Gorillas and I'm listening to this Dell verse, but like people don't even know about like the Dell verse that he did on Future Development. You know what I mean? Like, so for being deep and just really caring about the culture, I think the reaction always like, oh, okay, all right, bandwagon, you know, or like kind of like, oh, now you guys care, right? Because he has a song with the dude from Blur, and they have a gimmicky cartoon element to it, you know. But go back to No Need for Alarm or Future Development or Wish My Brother George Was Here and listen to those raps, you know. I actually had the opportunity to sit down with Dell at his house with a colleague of mine, Nate LeBlanc. And we did a deep dive on No Need for Alarm. It was for Wax Poetics' podcast before they relaunched. And, you know, I found it fascinating because like talking to him, he was like, yo, this house that we're sitting in, I bought that off of Gorillaz money. So it's like, and which is really 2 songs, you know what I mean? Whereas he has an entire catalog of like brilliance that, I don't know, he doesn't have any other houses, you know? So on one hand, as a listener, I'm like, you know, I wish he was celebrated for stuff like No Need for Alarm, but I'm very happy for him that he's able to buy a house with some Gorillaz money.
Yeah. I think, you know, for me, Dell's, like you said, No Need for Alarm, that's the classic. To me, that's always going to be my favorite Dell album. But another important part of his career is Deltron 3000.
100%.
Man, where do you rank that, like in terms of concept albums? Like to me, I think it's maybe Prince Paul, Prince Among Thieves, and then that's it.
Yeah, for me, it ranks quite high. It ranks quite high, and it, you know, I think every time Deltron gets mentioned, of course, Automator needs to be mentioned, and sort of on that trajectory, you have to mention Dr. Octagon. So that's another great concept album that I really like. But Deltron is way up there. And when did that drop? Like 99? 98, 99? Like it's fucking,
might have even been 2000, maybe.
Jeez. I mean, it's been a while, right? But I mean, it that album is as, you know, forward thinking, is 99. As 99. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. You know, to my point right now, like if it dropped today, it would still be like the most futuristic, amazing concept album ever, you know? So for me personally, it ranks super high. It's way up there. Prince Amongst Thieves is another huge one for me. So, you know, we're in agreement there. When did you guys first listen to Deltron? And is that your favorite Dell album, or does that not count as a Dell album? Is that a collaborative project?
I know for me, my first introduction to Dell was actually Both Sides of the Brain. That was the Dell album I heard. And then that basically got me on the train of, okay, I got to know who this guy is. I got to look up everything he does. Like that was my brain always operated with artists, was like, whenever I found him, I just started digging in the whole catalog. And so No Need for Alarm quickly became my favorite Dell. But yeah, I do think that is a great point, is like, Deltron is certainly a Dell album, but it does feel like it's very Day in the Automator too. And obviously Kid
100%.
big part. And so it does. It is more of a group album than I'd say, even though Dell's the primary voice throughout it.
Right.
See, for me, I was Tony Hawk, and like Justin said, it was a combination of the two, of playing Tony Hawk at home, going to school, having like, because I went to a private school, so I'm the guy bringing like 50 Cent and Lil Wayne, and then I have my white friends bringing me Gorillaz, and I'm like, who is this guy rapping like this? And then it's like, okay, I dive into Deltron 3030, and I'm like, okay, this is my favorite Dell album. And then I find out, wait, he's in this group with Hieroglyphics. Wait, it's with the same people who made Souls of Mischief with 95 to Infinity. It's like, whoa, blew my mind.
I think Dell, I mean, he does get credit, but he is still underrated. You know what I mean? In terms of album runs, you have I Wish My Brother George Was Here, No Need for Alarm, Future Development, Deltron. That's 4. Both Sides of the Brain, I think, has a few skippable tracks, but I still think the good songs are fantastic, and it's a fucking super strong effort. Dell is just so easily like enjoyable. I think people like sort of dismiss him, like, oh yeah, that dude raps good. But it's like, no, dude, like listen to his style. I think when the jump between I Wish My Brother George Was Here to No Need for Alarm, when we talked to him, he was like, no need for alarm. I just wanted beats and raps, dude. I just wanted to go nuts. And that's totally what it is. It's so raw. And like, he's like a trumpet player on that. He's weaving in and out and like doing like weird cadences and stuff that, you know, you've never heard of before. So I think Dell really needs to get his flowers. I mean, he is certainly one of the best. And Lyndon, you mentioned the Hieroglyphics albums earlier, and like all of his verses on Third Eye Vision are just like, they're so fire, you know? And he has so much presence and voice. And again, I mean, we should give Dell his flowers. He's certainly one of the best.
I agree.
Absolutely. And like you said about kind of that way that Dell is maybe underplayed a little bit, I think probably at times him and Souls, some of that is just kind of, you know, they're so naturally funny. A lot of their verses, they have that humor to them. And so you kind of laugh along, and you know, it catches you with a one-liner. But like when you really break down some of the rhyme structures and the wordplay that they were using, it's incredible at times.
Yeah, 100%. So incredible. So incredible. I mean, I don't even know how else to respond to that. I mean, he's so good. He's so enjoyable. And, you know, you mentioning the aspect of humor, I think is huge. Not just in Jairo, but in hip hop. I mean, the hip hop I grew up with, it was party music. It was contemplative. It was goofy. It was like kind of everything. It was, you know, rap these days, it's splintered into a million different subgenres. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But, you know, you also like, you know, the MF Dooms of the world can like make you laugh as well as make you think and make you rewind, you know, and that's certainly something that was captured on especially Souls of Mischief and especially the early Dell albums for sure.
Being that you were with them from the jump, for people who are listening to this that may not necessarily know that, or maybe checking it out for the Deltrons or for just the Souls of Mischief part, can you tell us about like how that bond came together and how they formed the group?
You know, as far as I know, a lot of them just went to high school together. You know, through the years of interviewing people and like, you know, I'm all about sort of capturing the history and making sure it's recorded right. You know, most of the biggest rap crews and the best collectives of the world, they just were in the same neighborhood. They just went to the same high school. So I think that was the case. A lot of stuff I think was recorded at Dell's mom's house and Casual's mom's basement. So I think that's how they linked up. Oakland cats, Richmond area cats. Yeah, and so I think that is sort of the history. But then what happened was Souls of Mischief blew up. They were signed to Jive, I believe, and you know, were ubiquitous. I mean, in 1993, I think I was in like 9th grade or something. That video was fucking everywhere, dude. It was on the radio as well, and it was like for a Bay Area native, like that was like a very proud moment. It's like, damn, dude, these cats are like from Oakland and like they have like the #1 song, you know? So it was also really cool because once they got dropped and all that, they were still around. And like, you know, to our earlier point, they, you know, they started their own label. They did a lot of forward thinking stuff online with their website. So it was really great to see the sort of groundswell of support because, you know, at first it was like some people like Souls of Mischief, they're on TV, some people like Dell, whatever. But then it was like, oh, okay, then Casual dropped Fear Itself, which is a fucking amazing album. I think it's one of the best Hyro albums. And in general, I think it's sort of under heralded as well. And so, you know, as these projects are slowly getting released, you start seeing cats with that fucking t-shirt everywhere, right? Like the Hyro shirts. You know, you're wearing a Wu-Tang shirt right now, and it's like they have been compared as sort of the West Coast Wu-Tang, and we can get into that a little bit more because I don't know if I fully agree with that. But yeah, when I travel, I see hieroglyphics, the Jairo shirt everywhere, and it's just a reminder of how lodged they are into the culture on a worldwide level too.
Absolutely. And I think a great point you're bringing up too is Souls blowing up. I mean, man, they were just kids too. Is, you know,
totally.
Sometimes like look at the shift to like TikTok now and how teens are blowing up, and we're like, oh man, guys don't grow up anymore and get A&R. It's like, man, Souls were kids, Mobb Deep were kids, like guys were blowing up young then too. I mean, Souls of Mischief, 93 Till Infinity, obviously one of the greatest songs, the album too. One of these iconic, but man, there was so much good stuff on that album. Like That's When You Lost and just
right.
Like it's just kind of amazing to me, like thinking of like A+, like producing some of that stuff at such a young age.
Right. And A+ should get his due as a producer as well. Like a lot of like the great Jairo beats, when you look them up, you kind of think it's going to be Domino or, Dell occasionally produces something hot, but A+ has great fucking material. And his solo stuff is very solid as well. I like that you brought up the youth element, because I think Dell was also like 19 when his first album came out. And I don't know if you guys remember like the Jairo oldies comps that they ended up releasing years later. Originally, they were tapes, songs like Cab Fare or Step to My Girl by Souls, which are like all-time favorite like songs. I mean, they just have that sort of homemade magic feel to them. But when you listen to them, it's like, yo, dude, you're listening to 14 and 15-year-olds rapping. Like, that's how old that shit was. You know what I mean? So to say that they were prodigies is like almost an understatement. Like, they were kicking like these complex cadences on the song Step to My Girl, for example. Opio goes off just like he always does. And like, dude, I think he was like 13 or 14. So, I mean, it's incredible, man. These guys are just like, very naturally gifted, and they harness their energy, and they know how to project themselves.
I remember, going back and like doing the history of Souls, and so you're going through the discography, and it is so funny to kind of, you go from 93 Till Infinity, and then you get to No Man's Land, and it's like their voices all change. They have all grown.
They grew up.
Like, oh wait, these are the same guys.
Right.
That vocal tone had changed so much. I did want to touch on, someone you had mentioned, as someone super underrated, someone I agree with completely, Casual. Man, that Fear Itself album. I mean, I love No Need for Alarm. I love 93 Till Infinity. I think Fear Itself might be my favorite album.
Might be the solo Jairo run.
Yeah, like just Casual was just amazing. Like Follow the Funk, I could listen to on repeat for a whole day. And what was it about Casual that made him so different from Dell and Souls, but also they work so well together, on their like that chemistry just worked so well.
I think the main difference with Casual versus the rest of the Jairo crew is he's a little bit more street, he's a little bit more hard. What I said earlier about wanting to smoke a bowl with Tajay if you see him at a party. Yeah, Casual still a little intimidating as well. I actually did a pretty in-depth piece on him on the making of Fear Itself. And we sat down and just fucking talked about the album. He broke down every track, and he was also very young when that was made. But Casual is a little bit more street, whereas like Souls is a little bit more junior college, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all. I think they're both amazing in their own regard, but that's what Casual brings, a different type of presence. He brings a lone presence. It's like, who is this guy? Like, who is this guy? Sometimes Souls, again, and I don't mean this in a bad way, sometimes they meld into sort of one unit when they're just firing off on all cylinders, and it's like, every song is a posse cut, and they're all so infused and so, dynamic as one. But if you threw Casual into Souls of Mischief, you'd be like, whoa, who's that dude? Like, his voice is just so different. And Fear Itself, I think, has like a little bit of a street edge to it. And I agree with you, man. I think I don't know. I love No Need for Alarm so much, but Fear Itself might be like sort of the sneaker pick as like favorite solo Jairo album. I mentioned this earlier with like the Wu-Tang versus Jairo comparison. Wu-Tang, their first generation solo albums is sort of like what cemented it, right? I mean, Cuban Links and Liquid Swords and Return to 36 Chambers, those are fucking masterpieces. And no diss, but it's not like Opio has like a Liquid Swords. It's not like Festo has a Liquid Swords, you know? It's not like A Plus has a Liquid Swords, but Casual has a Fear itself, and it's way up there, and it sits high for me as well.
In terms of that Wu-Tang comparison, you know, I agree with you that I don't think it's a, you know, apples to oranges kind of situation where they add up as, oh yeah, that's the West Coast Wu-Tang. But I did always kind of think one comparison I did like was kind of Pep Love being sort of the Master Killer. Like he released late, much later than everybody. He's kind of the hidden guy. He, you know, popping up with a verse here or there. But man, he was extremely talented too.
Yeah, 100%. I forgot what his solo album was.
I think it was the first one.
Yeah, the first one. Shit, I forgot what it was called, but there was this compilation. I think it was a battle axe compilation called Defenders of the Underworld. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I think it was released like late 90s, early 2000s. Dell is on there. It's actually a Canadian comp from that dude Mocha. Mocha Only is on there.
Yeah.
Swollen Members is on there. And Pep Love has a track on there called Trinity Lost, which is sort of this like very dark, forsaken, it's not a club song. It's just him going the fuck off over like this eerie sample. And like, that's the Pep Love that I love. Like, I'm just like, what? You're in Hyro too? What the fuck? They're like, it's not fair, you know?
For me, the Pep Love song I always loved was this joint called Fight Club. And I think it's because I'm such a big like Dilated Peoples fan, and it's got that dilated sample of Rock Iron Science. It's just he was just going in. It did have like that Fight Club movie kind of almost. It felt like it could have been in there as a soundtrack.
Well, okay, so you guys mentioned Pep Love. You mentioned Casual. Who are your sort of like favorite Hyro members?
Oh, for me, favorite. I think it's hard not to go with Dell, but and like I said, Casual had my favorite album. But yeah, I honestly like I'm really big on A Plus. Like there's something about A Plus that's always just like I just loved it. Like I even liked his he put out a solo album, My Last Good Deed, like in the mid 2000s, and like I really like that album too. It's I don't know. I think like in terms of souls, like A Plus was always the one that.
Okay.
Like,
I gotta check that out. And I presumably it was self-produced as well.
Yeah, I think he did pretty much most of it himself. Yeah.
Dope. I know that Tajay is doing some side tracks or maybe even like an EP with a producer called The Architect. And I think A Plus had done some stuff with him too. So yeah, I definitely want to go back and revisit that album that you're talking about. Lyndon, what about you? Like who are your favorite?
It would probably
Hyrule dudes.
It would probably have to be Dell, but if I'm not going with Dell, it's like y'all said, it's Casual, man. His voice was just
right.
So it just lured me in. I do have a soft spot for Opio though.
Yeah. Opio was the lady killer. Like I remember, like all my like girlfriends would be like, "Oh, Opio," you know. And his voice was also very dynamic. Speaking of voices, you know, the changing of voices and stuff. Opio's voice to me has not changed. You know, I think like Tajay and everybody else. I mean, even Dell. Inevitably, your voice is gonna age, but every time Opio's on, you know, it's Opio's turn. You're like, oh, there's Opio. You know.
And that's one of the things I like about him. Consistency is key, and he is probably he's one of the most consistent in the group in terms of what he brings to the track every time. For sure.
And I think he did some side stuff. I forgot the dude's name.
Was it
not coming to me right now? Equipto, yes. Yeah. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, Equipto.
Yeah, Equipto. Yeah. Exactly, from Board Stiff. I think they did an album together, and the name of it escapes me right now, and that was like early 2000s. But even then I was like, damn, dude, like Opio still got it, you know? So, I mean, the amazing thing with Hyro, I mean, just besides us like enjoying their music, but I mean, to be able to like maintain this longevity as just pretty much an independent record and a record label, an independent consortium and business is like so commendable. Like these guys like aren't just making the best music, but they're making moves within the music industry, you know?
And I think another point just to that of Souls not slowing down, you know, Opium not slowing down, Souls entirely was they were still killing it. You know, they linked up with Prince Paul for that Montezuma's Revenge album.
Right.
Quite good. And then
that was great.
You know, did one with them too. It's like they still every time they come back together, it's like it's still dope. It's never you're never like, oh man, this is you know this is some bad rehash.
They let us down.
Let me go play 93 till infinity again. Like it's always
right.
It delivers.
It's still them, but it's still modernized and new. I need to revisit No Man's Land, and I was actually talking to Tajay, and I was like, "Yo, dude, I mean, that album was a big disappointment. Like when I was a kid, like I fucking hated it. And I was like, what are you guys doing? You know, and it's funny, and it's actually really cool to be able to have these sort of discussions with the makers of this art that you like. And you know, he was really fucking cool about it. He's like, just go back and listen to it again. You know, you might find some stuff you like and whatnot. And I did, and he was right. You know, and also, you know. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys this, you know, but it's all about like when music hits you as well. So I love that you mentioned Montezuma's Revenge. I think Jairo, all the dudes in Jairo just have a natural relationship and just engagement and just, what's the word I'm looking for? Rapport with Prince Paul. Like if there's like a Prince Paul Souls of Mischief remix, it's going to be dope. If there's a Prince Paul Dell remix, you know, it's going to be dope. So, I mean, he has that song on Both Sides of the Brain with Dell, which I think is incredible. The name of the track escapes me right now. But yeah, to your earlier point, I also love their project with Adrian Young. So, I mean, you know, they're just like tremendous artists. And if they link up with like a producer whose like mindset is aligned with theirs and sort of understands their technical abilities, it's gonna be good. Like it's always as good as it is on paper with these guys, I feel.
What do you think is like when in Baton Rouge, you can trace like the influences of Boosie and Webby to like today? What would you say is, or some of the artists or some of the movements that Jairo influenced on the Bay?
I think for them, it was escapism from the constant Too Short, constant E40s. And don't get me wrong, those dudes are my heroes. I've never had a chance to interview Too Short. He's on the bucket list. But I've had a chance to speak to E40, and I was just like, yo, like you guys are like, they're not just legends. It's like they set the bar. And so when Jairo came out, they weren't trying to be a Too Short. They weren't trying to be an E40, right? They're doing their own thing. And so I think sort of the lane that they opened was more heady, you know, sort of type raps, raps that were more, it was more about what you did in your life versus a lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's like, they're just going to rap about their day and chicks and, you know, and being on the BART. So I think in those terms, it opened up lanes for like a lot of the Living Legends guys, opened up lanes for Board Stiff, you know, just, oh God, such a plethora of South Bay, as well as Oakland, as well as San Francisco acts, you know, and to this day, I mean, this is 2021. I mean, I'm a fan of Nappy Nina. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she knows Tajay too. And she's like a young girl who's in college. So, and I'm just an old dude like talking to her, but she gives it up to Souls and she gives it up to Jairo. And it's like very nice to see that. And then when you listen to her music, it's like, she makes smart ass music. She's not trying to be a girl Too Short. And again, no diss to Too Short. I mean, I'm Too Short's biggest fan, but
no 100. But you can trace the fibers, and that's what I love about like conversations like these. Is looking to the fibers of seeing like, okay, we have Jairo here, and like you said with the young lady, you can see the fibers traced to her in the DNA and how those influences were passed on. And I think that's some of the coolest stuff in hip hop.
Yeah, 100%. I love seeing how this thing becomes a watershed moment, and it's a domino effect, and you know, it affects everything else thereafter. And I think, you know, like, of course, like everybody has to step up after they hear Future Development. You know, of course, crews need to step up after they hear Souls. You know what I mean? just the back and forth, the energy. And the other thing with these guys is like they had great live shows. And so I think what they brought to their live shows, I think were also, it also influenced a lot of people because rap shows, like when I was very young, were kind of boring, dude. Like these guys would just like, play a beat and rap over it. Whereas like it wasn't as performative. You know what I mean? If you ever been in a Too Short show, it's boring. It's like you're at a club and he's just kind of,
Like,
but when you're at
I can't stand it.
And it's no diss to their art or them.
No, for sure.
It's just like I'm just saying, like, some people are better live, and the dynamic and the back and forth. But yeah, I mean, I also don't want to diminish the Soul Sides crew either. I felt like they were also hugely important and ran in similar lanes as Jairo, and Soul Sides being DJ Shadow and Latyrix and Black Alicious and DJ Zen, and I think I'm forgetting a couple other people, but they were very transformative as well. And so they sort of built upon each other, making songs that you could play in the club, but also listen to while you're smoking and joining, and then it's also saying something substantive,
100%.
When you kind of mentioned that, Jairo, who do they influence? I think that's a great example of Jairo's reach. Because to me, I don't think of Jairo as someone just influencing the Bay. Like to me, they influence Los Angeles acts.
Right.
Guys in the South, the East Coast, the Midwest. I think they just kind of laid out a blueprint for underground hip hop in a way. And I don't know if, the underground hip hop scene that as we know it would have existed the same if Jairo doesn't kind of tour like they're doing and have this kind of crew of so many different styles and different takes, kind of showing that there's this diversity that exists, beneath the surface of the mainstream.
I fully agree with that. And, it makes sense to your argument because like, even after they got dropped and after they went independent and after No Man's Land came out, it's not like they were on the radio. It's not like they were on MTV, but they were selling out shows and tours in Europe for like decades. So, they're still wildly popular elsewhere in the world. Of course, like the Bay Area, we're very saturated with them, but so what, but the rest of the world, they're getting the Hieroglyphics logo tattoo still, so I agree that their reach was very worldwide. Just the West Coast in general, early 90s, West Coast stuff, I think still doesn't get the credit it deserves. Freestyle Fellowships, To Whom It May Concern, changed the game for independent hip hop. And even the dudes from Jairo like gave it up to Freestyle Fellowship and vice versa. And so, yeah, I mean, it's their approach and also the independent music label approach certainly has influenced countless of people, even if they don't give it up to them. And even if there's not like a direct line, I think for cats like us or for anyone who's just a little bit older, who's absorbed it, you can see it.
One major success story I do think Jairo maybe deserves a little more credit for is, we always talk about rappers that, blow up and become these huge mega stars, and it's always involves acting usually. It's Will Smith, it's Ice Cube. It's like
right.
Jairo secretly got that too with Mahershala Ali. It's like
right.
He was signed to Jairo Imperium. It's like
exactly.
It's like
I did not know that
whole career that people don't even know about.
That's great. They got an Oscar winner. That's nuts.
They have an Oscar winner. Exactly. And Dell was in that mid-90s movie as well, that Jonah Hill film recently.
Jonah Hill one.
That was a great movie as well.
Yeah, it was very nostalgic for me. And it, obviously it was a full-on nostalgia bomb. But yeah, I think, like sort of what we mentioned, like I just interviewed MC8 for Passion of the Weiss on the making of Straight Up Menace. And, that was the era when Tupac's in a movie and Ice-T's in a movie and MC8's in a movie and everyone's in a movie. Jairo didn't have that route, right? I mean, we're not we're not from LA or New York. So it's like everything we have to amplify ourselves, and there's no sort of business or support system. So they, you know, they weren't in movies and stuff. So for them to be able to just, you know, make the indentation that they did worldwide without going through the normal avenues that everybody else did. And not only normal avenues, like completely independent, completely different avenues, selling things hand to hand, as well as, you know, starting Bandcamp before people even knew what that was, I think just speaks to their forward thinking nature.
So in terms of hieroglyphics altogether, did you think for them to kind of mint themselves as one of these, you know, legendary collectives in hip hop, was it important for them to make that Third Eye Vision album to kind of solidify themselves as more than just a crew?
I think so. I think it's an issue that most crews and collectives face. You know, Cold Chillin', oh, not Cold Chillin',
Juice Crew.
Yeah, Juice Crew, yes, Juice Crew, off of Cold Chillin'. You know, they had to have that Marley Marl In Control album to have sort of like a crew album. And so, I do think Third Eye Vision was very important. I actually wrote the liner notes to the reissue for that, I just remembered. And so in doing that, I had to interview all the members and talk about the importance of the album. And I think what emerged was that Domino, the producer, was wildly important and just foundational in every aspect of making that happen, besides producing it, but also getting it out on the airwaves. And I think it is important for loose sort of loose collectives to have a crew album. You know, at the very least, it cements that here's his crew album. And they've had a couple after that. And frankly, I didn't really check for them. What I heard, I wasn't really into. But Third Eye Vision is an album, you know, they each have like those individual cuts on there. And then they also, you know, You Never Knew is on there, which is like fucking amazing. And it's just really striking that these guys who are already so wildly popular and independent can get together and do a crew album and it still be good. Sometimes the crew albums just don't work out, you know? You have a loose collective and everyone is dope, but you get together and things sort of sound like they're dialed in. And I remember talking to Dell, and he was like, he actually isn't a fan of Third Eye Vision. He kind of thought it was whatever. He thought it was kind of phoned in, and I was like, whoa, it has like some of the sickest parts on it, you know? So it's funny to see people's perspectives, but I think it's an important album, not only in their discography, but just an important West Coast album too.
So to kind of close things out, I wanted, as someone who's interviewed these guys and talked to them, what's maybe something that fans don't really know or perhaps don't appreciate about these guys that you've learned from them talking to them over the years?
Let me think about that a little bit. I mean, with them, there's so many characters, and I'll just say it. Like personally, for me, I'm closest to Tajay and Dell. I text Dell, you know, we text, and Tajay, we also text, and he's been on the podcast before, Dad Bod Rap Pod, and I think it's important to know that these guys are crazy intelligent and crazy normal. You know, you see a rapper on TV, you're like, who the fuck, you know? They seem bigger than they are. But when we were interviewing Dell, he's like, yo, wait, hold on, I gotta get on the BART real quick. You know, when I went to his house, it was very modest, and he was just very humble. And when you talk to Tajay, he's an entrepreneur. He's talking about islands and the Caymans and like this hotel concept that he's working on. And so I guess to answer your question, these guys are just smart motherfuckers, man. You know, like there's no big secret about them. They're just gifted and smart. And if you don't hear them releasing any music, you know that they're working on some other shit that is not music related, you know, whether it be for their label or whether it be for, you know, other artists. It's not like if they're not making music, they're not doing anything. These guys have been completely active and on the forefront of the independent music scene since, you know, the mid-90s.
Well, David, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Man, you mentioned it early, Dad Bod Rap Pod. Where else can people hear you and check out your work?
Yeah, I appreciate the time for that. Yeah, Dad Bod Rap Pod. It's a weekly podcast that I run with my colleague Nate LeBlanc, who I've worked with many times, and it's also co-hosted by Damone Carter, aka Dem One, who's a great friend of mine, and he steers the ship in the show. And that's a weekly show, and we got a lot of cool things coming up. I think as of this recording, we have an episode of Vast Air coming out because it's the 20th anniversary of the Cold Vein. And you can check us out anywhere, right? Anywhere you get podcasts for that one. I just started recently writing for NPR. I have a piece on Freddie Gibbs that just dropped maybe like a month ago.
Nice.
It was right before the Grammys came out, and it was for Alfredo. So that was exciting. You can check me there. I also do stuff for Passion the Weiss frequently. That's just super fun. Shout out to Jeff Weiss. I do stuff for Wax Poetics, both online and in print. And we have a couple big print issues coming out. And if everything goes right, I'm gonna have the cover story for an upcoming print issue. It's gonna be on the making of Hard to Earn. It's a super deep interview with DJ Premier, and I'm really excited to drop that. And let me see, I'm also writing for the Paris Review. I'm gonna start sort of spearheading more hip hop focused material there. I mean, they're one of the oldest and prestigious literary magazines ever, but they don't really treat hip hop with the respect it deserves. So I'm gonna be that guy, hopefully, if they continue to let me. And we have a very big thing with Black Thought about to drop for National Poetry Month. Hopefully, if my editor gets on top of it and drops it in time, we have like a week left. But yeah, so I mean, those are some current things I'm working on, and thanks for the time and platform for me to like even talk about it, man. Appreciate it.
Wait, where can they follow you at on social media? Because I want to go check out that Freddie Gibbs article. Like,
oh yeah, I appreciate that. I am mostly on Twitter _ David Ma. I'm also on Instagram. It's Notorious __. I ran a blog called Notorious.com. I think it's like 15 years old now or something. It's a remnant from the blog era when everybody was reading blogs, like, 2007, like I would get 1,500 people reading it a day. It's a remnant of that time, but it still serves as like a repository of my writing. So you can always go on there and kind of see what I've been doing. I haven't updated it for a while, but Twitter would be the main source. Cause I like Twitter. Like it's like no one's on there, but everyone's on there,
100%.
I can confirm David's a good Twitter follow. And yeah, if you want to check out a great episode of his podcast, Dad Bod Rap Pod, check out when they interviewed Breeze Bruin from Juggernauts.
Oh man,
it's such a good episode.
Oh man, yeah, and and the podcast allows me to like, I booked the show, so I set up all the guests, and one, I'm very happy that people return my calls, but two, it's just great to like catch Breeze Bruin on like a Tuesday afternoon, and like we record it, we drop it 2 days later, and it's like sort of the cyclical thing. And we try to stay consistent. A new episode every Thursday.
Awesome.
All right, thanks again, David.
Yo, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. I got to check out the previous episode with Andreas Hale. He was an ex-editor of mine at Hip Hop Site, like fucking 15 years ago or something. So I'm really glad you guys are doing this. Everything seems like it's done in earnest, and you guys are heads. So congratulations. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. When just kind of listen to Dad Bod Rap Pod over the years, I was like, that was one of the reasons I was like, man, you know what? Like, I need to take my own lane and get into this podcasting game, because it was like I just saw the dope work y'all were doing, and it was like, okay, there's a way to contribute and cover, the underground hip hop too. Exactly.
It's not like we're trying to be like the new, I don't know, Entertainment Tonight of rap or something. Like I think all these podcasts that are in the universe that we exist in, and yours included, we're all just like covering stuff we love, and this is important history. And if we don't do it, who's gonna do it? Exactly. And if we don't do it, I don't want some fucking idiot intern doing it either. I want like cats who know what they're talking about doing it. So appreciate the time and sort of the fellowship. Thank you, guys.
All right, and we're back. What a great conversation about Jairo. Really
loved it.
David coming on. Lynn, I know you were taking some notes there. You getting ready to do some homework on some of that stuff.
Yeah, man. There's some stuff I gotta go check out. When you dropped the Mahershala Ali bomb, I was like all of the conversations about best rappers with actors needs to end because Jairo has Mahershala, and that's better than Will Smith. I'm sorry, it is.
That's the game set match on everybody with Mahershala Ali.
It had to be
Ali, as he was once known.
That's crazy. I'm still mind blown about that.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up this week, we're going to give you another dose of listener lanyard, giving you a little bit of our taste, what we're loving, music, movies, film, TV, whatever. Get y'all hopefully a few good recommendations. Lynn, what you been enjoying lately?
So on top of the fact that I'm a nerd, I'm a reality TV trash whore. I love it. I just can't help myself. Anything that's competition based, reality TV, I eat that up. So there's 2 reality TV shows that are ongoing right now. One is The Circle, which is where everybody who's on the competing is in a room or actually in an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment complex. And basically each person's there, they can't leave, and the only way you communicate with each other is through social media and through texting and whatnot. And it's your job to figure out, is someone catfishing, are they lying, are they really who they are, and you vote them out. And basically based upon your popularity amongst the other players, the most popular player wins $100,000 at the end of the show. So that's a good one. And I love food competitions. Been watching Top Chef, man. So those are my 2 things I'm on right now. But being that I'm an anime guy, if I had to recommend one thing for people to check out and to be okay, I'm gonna give this anime thing a shot. Look, take my word for it. It's an oldie but goodie. Cowboy Bebop, Spike Spiegel, Jet. It's incredible. I'm not gonna give you any new school anime recommendations until I drop the OG, so I know that y'all are vibing with anime. But there's nothing that beats Cowboy Bebop. It's on Hulu right now, and so yeah, if you have Hulu, you can watch it. It's absolutely amazing. All the westerns and sci-fi westerns and everything you know about it takes some influence from the Watanabe classic Cowboy Bebop.
Oh man, that's such a good pick. Cowboy Bebop, to me, that's the anime you always go with. To the person that says, I hate anime, or I don't want to watch anime, or
facts,
or there's no way this anime is good. You show them Cowboy Bebop and they'll be like, okay, they have to concede Cowboy Bebop.
And that's why I had to do it first before I come throw out my weird shit. I had to all right, I'm gonna ease everybody into getting on the anime bandwagon.
And another reason Cowboy Bebop's great, amazing American cast, dub cast. So if you're one of the people that just you can't stand subtitles, you still got no excuse.
It's the quintessential dub. It is the one that I can't watch with subtitles. I've never seen the Japanese version because there's no need for me to when it's how good that version is. Also, being that this is a music pod, the music on that show is some of the best I've ever heard in terms of TV movie.
That theme, that jazz theme,
incredible,
so good. I like those recommendations. So for me, I'm gonna get a little into music this week because
I'm glad.
I've been all in on this album by Van Buren Records. Okay. This is a rap crew out of Massachusetts. They just dropped an album called Bad for Press. I honestly was not that familiar with them before this dropped, but I came across it and was just all in. This crew is really dope. The two MCs that really caught me were a guy named Meech and another one, Giles, Jiles.
Okay.
And they're just super dope. The whole album is great. It's just posse cut after posse cut, and I was all in. It was like a throwback to me to just great Wu-Tang stuff. And today we were talking about Jiro, just amazing posse cuts, and a clear crew that has chemistry and loves working together. So I'm gonna recommend Van Buren Records, Bad for Press, on all the usual streaming spots. And if you're looking for a movie, horror is my jam. So I love the Shudder streaming service. If you've ever checked that out, it's just nothing but horror movies. It's like AMC owns it, and they got this strange movie called Bliss. I don't want to spoil too much.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that actually.
Okay, but it's just kind of like wild and heavy metal and sort of a strange, grungy take on the vampire.
Oh wait, so there's 2 movies called Bliss out right now.
Oh yeah, there's another one like with Salma Hayek or something.
And Ellen Wilson. That's the one I saw. That's what I okay.
Yeah. This is if you find the Bliss, I think that one's like on Amazon.
It's on Amazon Prime, yeah.
If you find that one, this is not the same Bliss. You're gonna get a very different experience. And if you find this other one thinking it's the Salma Hayek one, you'll also get a very different experience and be very thrown off. So yes, the Bliss, I think is from like 2019. I want to say is when it came out. So it's a little, yes, there was another Bliss that came out. So of course movies are getting to be like, rappers are getting to be like movies now. You know, they're starting to repeat names. You know,
so what's it, just a quick, like, what's it, is slasher, is it thrilling, like
more thriller, little into the vampire lore. And so it's very bloody. So, you know, if you're squeamish, don't go for it.
That's my jam. Okay, I'm thinking that.
Yes, it's a very, very just kind of low budget and kind of intense and in your face movie.
All right, I'm gonna have to check out Bliss. Okay, I like that.
All right, well, that's our listener lanyard for this week, and you've made it to the end. This is the Never Less Than Ill podcast. Thank you once again for listening to us. We'll be back soon, and peace.